Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Australian Small Business Show. Matt, how are you?
Great, Christy Lee. How are you today?
I'm good. We're in a new financial year.
It's
Lots
free.
of
It's freezing.
it's it's freezing. Yeah, there's that. Lots of reflecting, lots of planning. I've been looking back. I've had a nanosecond of time to have a look back at the last 12 months and figure out what I'd really like to course correct in the next 12 months. So hence we thought this was a great time to talk about doing a bit of a mid-year
Reset.
reset. Yeah, that's probably the right word
A
for it.
check-in, maybe check-in, reset. But look, I haven't had a chance to do that, so this is going to be like a learning exercise for me. You're going to tell me
Okay.
exactly what I need to do because
It's like a practical session.
we've just gone straight from last year to this year for me.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of businesses that are in that boat at the moment where they're just chugging along, trying to keep everything going. And for some industries, there's, periods of the year that are quieter than others. In your industry, that used to be the case, but it's not anymore. So tough. You have to keep going. And it's not usually, I mean, the end of June, end of financial year is always a busy time for me, but so is July. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a time that I've got a natural sort of low in the business, but I always do find that I'm pulled to do some, pausing and reflecting and resetting at this time of year. I don't do very good at annual planning. I find it too much of a long plan. So quarterly and 6 monthly tends to work better for my brain anyway. So I always like to use this time of year as a bit of an opportunity, I should say, to pause, look back at what's been working and what's not, and
Yeah.
also replan and reset the plan usually, which I have done.
Yeah. Well, I guess for most small business owners, it happens automatically because, you're looking at your numbers at the end of June
Mm.
and it's either going to tell you that things have worked or things haven't worked. So, so
Sometimes a combination for sure.
combination, yeah, but there is things that happen automatically. Even when you are busy as a small business owner,
Yeah.
you probably do redirect yourself at this time of year based on just that, what your numbers look like.
Exactly. So why don't we start at numbers then? Because it is the time of year where we are forced to look at our numbers because it's the end of financial year here in Australia. And whether or not you like the numbers, you are having to have a look at them at the moment. You certainly know what they look like, and you're having to do a lot of reporting and so forth. So this is a great time of year to look at your numbers. I think both in terms of reflecting on what, you might be running your P&L and thinking, "Ooh, got some problems there," but also
Mm.
doing your budget for the next year and really figuring out what it's costing you to do business at the moment,
Yeah,
right?
well, it does guide it. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the first thing that you need to be careful of is you don't run away from looking at those numbers,
100%. Yep.
particularly if they're not doing well, because it's like a runaway train, right?
Hmm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, you need to be looking at things like, your revenue, gross margins, and you talked about budgeting. So you obviously last year's actuals kind of that's your starting point for next year's budget, and it's really good to look through, particularly your expenses at the moment, I think, and go, well, what's essential, what's not essential there in
Mm.
terms of am I budgeting for, say, more marketing for the next financial year, or is it am I putting my marketing money somewhere where it's not working? So what other ideas can I come up with?
Mm. Yeah, 100%. You know, I'm pretty notorious for, I like numbers. I like looking at numbers, but I'll also make them up sometimes and just say, oh yeah, I'll definitely do that in sales this next year with no real clear plan how I'm going to make that happen. So you can't base your spending off fictional numbers. You need to
That's
base it off
that's
the real
a that's a
numbers.
manifesting, right? So we do that,
Partly.
and
Yeah.
we'll get to goals shortly. But the other thing you need to be looking at too is your how much money you're taking out of your business as well.
Hmm.
Is that realistic? Are you causing yourself some pain? Are you borrowing from the ATO? Um, yeah, and we all know the ATO aren't being particularly friendly at the moment.
I would suggest they're being the exact opposite of friendly from everyone I'm talking to. They're making it incredibly difficult to be in business. So, yeah, I think you've got to be cautiously looking at your numbers and just understanding that what it used to cost you to run your business, it probably doesn't cost that
No,
anymore. There's almost certainty in that. So it is about looking at, okay, I'll use myself as a guinea pig here. Do I really need every one of these software subscriptions that I'm paying for? Because there's a
exactly.
couple that I use and they're very helpful when I need to use them, but I use them like once every couple of months.
Yeah,
So is there an opportunity to use something different that's perhaps a lower cost or even going back to a manual process potentially, if it's that rare that you're using it? Automation's great, but unless you're getting the leverage out of the cost you're paying to have that automation, is it worth it?
yeah. Like a quick tip with your numbers. Now we talk about numbers all the time, but looking at your terms of trade with your
Mm.
suppliers and your customers as well, I'd put that in this this
Yeah.
little reset, particularly when it comes to cash flow, and make sure, you're budgeting for your expenses is, can I, negotiate longer payment terms for certain suppliers, for example.
Yeah, and you've got to, I think that really is dependent on industry and the size of the business and so forth. I work with some clients who are certainly small businesses, but because of the work that they do, people paying them are much larger businesses, and that creates incredible pressure
Yeah.
on a small business where the larger business might have and not, be in a position not to be willing to alter their payment terms when they're going to pay their suppliers. So I think you've got to be conscious of, yes, doing that to help your business, but also we're all in the world of small business here, not at the detriment of another small business.
No, exactly.
Yeah. So definitely look at your numbers. Don't be afraid to look at your numbers. I've shared on the podcast before, I've implemented a Finance Friday little check-in, which I've always looked at my numbers monthly, but I decided to do it weekly this year, partly because I knew that it wasn't going to be my best year financially in business. The writing was on the wall, that back half of 2025, and I want it to be across it. So I've looked at numbers a lot of weeks that haven't been great, that haven't
Yep.
been my best week, month, year, but I haven't shied away from looking at it. And it's in some ways been helpful to say, okay, what's the gap that I've got here that I need to make up, and trying to think creatively about making up that gap, strategically about what the product and service mix, what else I could be offering, what's different in the market right now. So it also gives you an opportunity to spot some gaps too.
Yep. And as we talked about last week, obviously looking at increasing your prices and things like that.
Yeah, 100%. So definitely numbers at this time of the year. And then you touched on the second one earlier, having a look at your goals. Are the goals you set at the beginning of the year still not only achievable, but still what you want to achieve, I think?
Yeah, exactly. And have a look at your wins. I think that's where I always start. And
Mm,
I look at, what new clients I've picked up over the last 12 months, what worked. Is there anything in common with them? It
yep.
helps me plan my content creation. Is there any pain points that those people have in common? And that's really what sets my marketing for the next few months.
Yeah, I think looking at, yes, the wins, like doing a bit of a SWOT analysis almost about, okay, this was my goal for this time of year. How have I gone? Where have my strengths been in reaching that goal? Where have my weaknesses been, my opportunities, my threats? For a lot of us, there are new threats in the market with technology and AI that are impacting our businesses.
Oh,
There's no doubt.
and legislation.
Legislation, just for extra
I
measure.
mean, as an example, like I look back at my last 12 months, and I'd say 50% of the new SMSF clients that I picked up were all people setting up self-managed super funds to buy residential property with borrowings, and they can't do that anymore. So,
Yeah.
the first thing I did this year was to
Mm,
look at, well, where did the other 50% come from? So
yeah.
that's kind of dictated where my marketing is going to be from now on.
Mm. I do that as well in terms of looking at where my clients are coming from, particularly my membership, but also what's the profile of the best members and the best clients, because they're the ones I want to attract more of, because people will come into your programs and you'll, buy your product and engage you for your services for all different reasons. And they're all great customers and clients, but there are probably a portion of those that if you could choose, you would have 100% of those kinds of clients. But until you're doing the digging in, the diving into, okay, well, where did they come from? What's important to them? What are their pain points, as you said? It's really hard to then figure out how to focus on getting more of those as well. So, but I think for goals as well, really, I always do a goal setting process as part of one of the networks I'm a member of at the beginning of the year. And I always look at it at the middle point of the year to determine, is this still aligned with what I actually like? Is the thing that I said I wanted what I want still?
Yep.
That's the first thing I look at. And also, is it realistic? And I don't want it to be easy. I do want it to be a stretch every year, but I've got other years I've gotten to the midpoint and it would have like the world would have to turn upside down for me to have met the goal that I set at the beginning of the year. And I'm an optimist, but there's some points where I've just had to say, I'm
It's not
only
going to
setting
get
myself
there.
up for failure to stick to this goal. I need to realign.
Yeah, I think too, and we've been through. I think with our goals, particularly in the last 12 months, they've kind of shifted with us because of
Yeah.
personal changes. The budget kind of we had a plan in place for the next 12 months that kind of
Mm,
got knocked on the head because of the budget. So
yeah.
we've had to kind of use what's happening outside of our businesses to kind of drive those goal reassessments as well.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I'm a huge advocate as a small business owner that your goals in your business should align with whatever your personal goals are. They could be lifestyle goals, wealth goals, time management goals. I don't, it's entirely your call. But
Yep.
if whatever your goals in your business are not aligned to that, it's not going to work for you. You're going to have tension there. When I started my business 20 years ago, my mantra was I'm building the empire. That worked great, and I could do 37 hours a week, 1,000 hours a week to make that happen, and it was really successful until I had young kids, and then
Yeah.
suddenly that goal was a little less important to me. So it's got to align. I have reassessed my goal, and I can confirm I am still on the same goal that I set at the beginning of the year. I'm on the same pathway. I'm not there yet, but the goal hasn't changed. So for me, the goal is staying the same. My word of the year will definitely change. But I do want to give our listeners permission that it's okay for your goals to change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So what else? What else are we going to reset in the middle of the year?
The third one that I'm really passionate about is team. Like, this is a time of year you need to be connecting your team back together, communicating with them, doing another mini team planning session, future pacing them, reminding them of the goals, letting them know if things have changed about the goals as well. Like, it's all very well for us to decide that, but if we're not communicating it with our team, this is a really important reset point in the year for your team because we tend to start the year really strong. The second quarter tends to fade after Easter. We come into winter and everyone's a bit sad and, unless they're off on
Looking
their
for
European
looking for the
vacation,
sun. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
too many people, my social feeds are just full of me living vicariously through other people's vacations at the moment. But it is a time that you need to reset the team and re-energize them for the back half of the year. So I'm pretty passionate about that being an important point.
It's the middle of the year time when most businesses will look at their KPIs for their team.
Look, every business has a different cadence on that. And look, I think it depends on your business and it depends on how you do your performance review program and what your goal setting with your individual team members looks like. If you are changing the goalpost, though, you absolutely want to be communicating that. So if you'd
Yep.
told individual team members or teams as a whole that this is what our targets are, and you completely realigned those, you must tell them and you must get them on board for whatever the new target is. And they're going to want to know some context, but you don't have to apologize or over explain or justify yourself. It's your decision.
And that's like as a helicopter view, as a small business owner,
Mm.
looking at the mix of people, is that something you would do as part of a reset?
Oh, yeah, this is a great time. I have an activity I teach called the clean slate exercise. I recommend it at the beginning of the year. The mid-year point's another great time to do it, to look at the people you've got, the roles you've got in place, and does it serve the business now and moving forward? And it's very likely you're going to need to make changes to your team
Well,
structure.
I've been reading this week about how small business in general is really underestimating the impact of payday super.
I've got members and clients who um, it was a real mix when I ran my last webinar. At least 60% of the people on the call were like, oh yeah, we've already started, like we're well ahead. But there was a portion that were they've known it's coming. It's not new. They've
Yeah.
been talking to their accountant and bookkeeper about it, but they still, even though they said to me, my accountant and bookkeeper are across it, but I have zero clue what I need to do.
Yep.
So the accountants have been doing a great job of educating that client in particular. But I've also got members that are needing to change their whole payroll cycle to be compliant with payday super. And that is not something you can do overnight. Like, that requires consultation. There's a process legally you need to go through to do that. Um, and there's certainly a percentage of people that have been caught off guard. And if that's you, it's fine. There's definitely a solution. I'm working with
Yep.
clients at the moment on the exact solution for their particular scenario. There's absolutely a fix here, but you want to get onto it now.
Okay. So before we move on from people, um, is it a good time to look at people via AI?
If you're not thinking about how you're using AI, your people are. So you want to be thinking about it. I definitely think you want to be looking at your AI policy in your business and putting some guardrails around using AI. And of course, there are going to be some roles that are directly impacted by AI, but I don't see it right now
Well,
replacing
I feel
people in
like we're
small
in this
business.
little big gap in terms of the cost that nobody really knows
Yeah,
whether they can accurately do a um, for or against or a comparison between people and AI because the credits, it seems to
are
be
going to
every
change.
week are changing and changing
Mm,
and it's getting more expensive. So a month ago, if you made the decision that yes, 4 or 5 positions could go,
yeah.
um, because I'm going to save this much money, I guarantee you today it's not as much as you thought it was going to be.
I agree, but I also don't think small business owners are thinking that way. I think corporates are definitely thinking, well, I know
Yeah,
they are. But for small businesses, it's about how can AI help us with efficiencies and do things better and faster? And what does that free up our team member to do that's getting those efficiencies? Is it being able to call the customer and check in on them? It's
yeah,
those human touches. AI can help you create more opportunities for those because they're not going to be bogged down in admin. So you should definitely be looking at how you can use it, in a really smart and sensible way to improve efficiencies for sure.
perfect. So now to the most important asset in your small business, us.
Well, hold on, we've skipped one. We've got one more to go before we get to us, and I
Oh,
think we should do us last. Let's do
right.
operations first.
Okay.
So I think when we say operations, we were really struggling with what to call this fourth one because there's so many other things you could do a reset on at this time of year.
Miscellaneous. Miss.
Miscellaneous, all the other stuff. All the other stuff bucket. But I think operations covers it, right? Because operations includes how we're attracting clients, so the sales and
Yep.
marketing. It includes how we're delivering our product or service. It includes how we're running our business at the back end. It's kind of all the things.
Yep. And I did a bit of that today. I mean, you touched on it before. I'm going through all my contacts and make what I do this time of year is make sure I've got everyone's correct contact details that anything
Yeah,
changed in their situation. And it got me thinking, look, I'll confess here, I've been running accounting businesses for 20 years, and
at
I
least,
still
yeah.
I still use Excel to keep contact lists.
I love an Excel spreadsheet
But
though.
and you know
Not for
what,
my client contacts, but
I spent about an hour and a half today, and I thought, no, I've got to find a better solution here.
you
I c
think?
and I couldn't because you touched on it before. I said it's the contact list for me is it's not touched. I don't need it for it to be anything else. I don't need a complex CRM system. I don't need anything like that. So why why spend that money when I
Well,
don't
you could build yourself one with one of the AI tools you've got if
need
you
to
want to.
have it? Yeah. So look, I think this time of year is a good time to look at things like that, your processes. We've had to obviously change a lot with the AML changes that have come through. So we're in a bit of a learning curve in terms of how that impacts our processes. It's kind of like we can't really um, compare this year to last year in that respect because everything
Yep,
just looks so different. But yes, processes, systems, as I said before, where's my marketing budget going to go this year?
yep.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the whole rest of the things. And I think it's important to do a reset there. I'm certainly looking at delivery of services for sure as part of that. So definitely an important time. Okay, now we can get to the most important one, us as the business owner.
Yeah, which is something that I haven't really been focusing on the last month because it's just been absolute chaos.
Look,
I've certainly put myself last anyway.
and I think this is a trap we all fall into as small business owners. And I learnt the hard way from a complete burnout situation that that wasn't the solution and that self-care is not selfish.
Yep.
And Matt will attest to the fact that I'm almost pedantic about having an exercise routine every day to the point
It's
where
growing too. I noticed there's a new one's been
there's
added just before dinner.
yeah, I'm trying to create a new nighttime routine to create a buffer between my desk and the kitchen slash the glass of wine I might be indulging in it of an evening. So added a little bike ride in. But I have learnt, and it was a learning curve that if I not allowed myself, made myself do the thing that I know makes me feel better, which for me is exercise every day, I'm a better business owner. I'm a better
Yep.
boss. I'm a better decision maker. All those things are true. And
More.
if I'm having a complete meltdown of a terrible day or stressful day, first thing I will do is get outside, even if it's for 5 minutes.
Yep.
And exercise is not for everyone, so I'm not saying that's the solution, but whatever it is for you, you need to figure out what fills up your cup and looks after you. Because if you're not looking after yourself, you can't look after your team, you can't look
Yep.
after your business, and you won't have a business to run.
And it's things like it's all around energy too. It's energy to learn the skills that you need um, to be able to grow your business as well. Like if you don't
Yep.
have that space to be able to sit there and go, look, I'm not going to do client work for the next hour. I'm going to do a webinar on AI or
Yep.
my people or something like that. So without that sort of headspace to be able to make that decision, you literally just bog down, and that's been me for the last month. But I've had other things to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I do sit on the lounge and watch you do that bike ride
You do.
because I'm exhausted.
Yeah, look, and I think there's seasons in business that, like, I'm not professing that every business owner has that luxury that they can make that time every day. I've got mentors that talk about creating a minimum. Like if it's five, if you know that your thing is reading a book, 5 minutes is your minimum. You might want half an hour, but that might be physically impossible some
Yep.
days in business. But if you can create that 5 minute kind of minimum, then at least you feel like you're getting in touch with whatever that thing is. Um, so I think it is important to try and bake it in. And I definitely don't feel like getting on that bike and doing that bike
No, I can tell.
ride.
Absolutely.
I'm making myself do it. So it is just really important to look after yourself. And
Yep.
as you said, to figure out where your energy's at. I got to the end of June absolutely exhausted.
Yep.
So it's taken me some time to even get my head around thinking about the next, 3 to 6 months, basically. So it's okay that it's not easy, but we're giving you permission. In fact, we're telling you to
Yeah.
prioritize your self-care
After we recorded this episode, I'm off to play snooker.
with your son. Yeah, that'll be
Yeah,
fun.
it would be fun.
So yeah, you got to bake those opportunities in. Easier some days than others, of course, but
Yep.
make sure you're looking after you and doing what you need to do to protect your energy. Otherwise, there's no business to run.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that is a wrap for us. Don't forget, the waitlist is now open for the Australian Small Business Club. So head over to the website, theaustraliansmallbusinessshow.com.au, and join the waitlist. We are opening really soon. We'd love to welcome you in.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy.
Thanks, Matt.